That's right. One of the absolute best horror movies of 2018 is one that you can't even watch. Let me tell you about it. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird, here to tell you about this movie that I actually mentioned once before in a previous episode. I did talk about it in my top 10 horror movies of 2018 that we put up not too long ago, and I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in on it because not only is it a movie worth talking about, but it's actually surrounded in a bit of controversy for those of us that keep an eye on releases of films and things like that. So let me get into it for you guys. The movie I'm talking about is called One Cut of the Dead. Now, this is a Japanese horror movie that was made, as I said, in 2018. It was actually made for a budget of $30,000, but it ended up being so successful and so sought after that it ended up making over $26 million, or the equivalent, over in Japan. So it was one of the top 10 most successful films of last year. And that's honestly not surprising after having watched it myself. So, how did I get to see it, but you guys didn't? Did I somehow take a trip to Japan that no one else knew about? No, definitely that's not the case. No, how I ended up seeing it actually ties in to the sort of controversy surrounding the film. Because, believe it or not, the way I found out about this film was through a Facebook post from a friend of our show's by the name of Monty Yazzie. He's the man that has helped us get into the International Horror and Sci-Fi Film Festival to see features in that as a part of the Phoenix Film Festival year in and year out. He's a very awesome guy, and he posted that this movie was available on Amazon Prime. I believe it was very early January of this year that it happened. It might have been in late December though, so no, it actually was in December because I had to watch it before I made my lists, and I did. So it happened in December. I see this Facebook post, and I was literally, I think that weekend we were going to be recording our top 10 of 2018, and Monty glowed about it. He's like, this is a movie that should be in your top 10 of this year if you're making a list. So I was like, okay, I better watch it. So I happened to be home that day. I watched the movie, and my reaction went from, what is this, in the first half hour, to by the end going, this is brilliant. I can see why it made as much money as it did. It is a movie about zombies, but it's done in such a unique way that if you like either zombies or if you like filmmaking, then you will really appreciate this movie. That is the long and short of what I can say about the people that will enjoy this film. Most people would if they gave it a try, but it is unlike anything else you've ever seen before. So I watched the movie, I had this reaction, and I might have even posted about it, but I definitely put it on my list. And then the very next day, I noticed, because I told my cohorts, I told Fuego, I told Marcia, I told Susie, that they needed to watch this movie, especially Fuego, in order to, you know, have a complete list for the year, because it definitely made it into my top 10 after having watched it. So he went to watch it. He's like, where is it on? I was like, it's on Prime. He's like, no, it's not. I was like, how can that be? I just watched it yesterday. And he went, and I went and confirmed it was no longer on Prime. It was literally on Prime for one day. And the reason why is because it was actually a bootleg copy. You see, there's a section of Amazon where it's kind of regulated like YouTube, where people can upload movies, I guess. I mean, I don't know that much about it. There's articles you can search. I'm not here to get into the technicalities of it because they honestly don't even know exactly how that it happened, except that it got by a bunch of their, you know, safety measures to prevent bootleg movies from going up. But essentially, as soon as people started tweeting about it having been available in the US and the UK on Amazon Prime, the company behind the film, they immediately took action and said, no, this is a bootleg copy, please do not support this. And it was rapidly pulled down, but the fact that it made it through all of the safety measures that Amazon had in place to begin with was a big bummer for the company. And now, as a result, apparently there is the idea that this movie might never actually see a United States theatrical, not only theatrical, but might never see a US release at all. Just because of this controversy and the company being so upset about it. So the other really weird thing about this whole situation, and part of why it was taken notice so quickly that this was a false upload or a bootleg, were the subtitles, believe it or not. This was a subtitled movie. It was, like I said, a transfer from Japan, so everything was in Japanese, and there were English subtitles. However, for a couple of the characters, there was a really weird thing about it that I did notice while I was watching it, but I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just a humor thing that I don't get, that doesn't translate. Maybe this sort of thing is okay in this movie. It's meant to be humorous. I don't know. Turns out that it was just flat racism. So what was going on, basically, and I'll pull up a picture so you guys can see, is that the subtitles for one of the characters in particular, this woman, she actually had her L's in the subtitles changed to double R's. So the old horrifying stereotype that, like, Asian people can't pronounce L's, so they use R's instead. They're just playing it up in the subtitles, which is pretty terrible and quite racist. So it's you know, or culturist, or whatever you want to call it. It's just offensive, and it's unnecessary, and that was one of the things that people took notice of, and that's why it made such waves, and why it's such a big deal that Amazon allowed the film onto their platform in such a state. So I'll try and find the companies really quick. So let's see, Third Window Films owner Adam Torrell confirmed that the film had not been uploaded by either his company or Nikatsu, the organization in charge of sales for the Asian marketplace. Quote, "I saw some posts on Twitter saying it was available on Amazon Prime in both the US and the UK, and considering the UK theatrical release is January 4th, this was in December, and as it was very hard to get an Asian independent film into cinemas, you can imagine how I started to panic and fear for my chances of getting Asian indies into cinemas from now on." So this was a big thing, because this was a trend-setting situation where it was an Asian independent film that was getting a big theatrical release, and then this happened and it was freaking everyone out. So the film was quickly pulled down from Amazon Prime, and no one else got to see it, unfortunately. So I'm here to just tell you a little bit about the movie and tell you why you need to do your darndest. I don't know, I mean, we have a worldwide audience. So if you have access to the movie here in the US, you probably don't have access to it. Some of you may know end arounds that I don't know. But I wanted to make people aware of this movie, especially the people outside of the US that can see it, because it's very, very worth your time. And I want the people in the US to write it down on their list to keep an eye out for when it does become available, if it does, because it's definitely worth having there, even if it doesn't get released for a little bit of time. It's worth everyone having on their list to be ready to watch once it becomes available. So the film is, I'm going to tell you the extreme broad strokes first, and then I will go into a little bit more in depth on the story, but that little bit more in depth, some people might consider a spoiler. So I'm going to start off and say the movie is about a crew of filmmakers making a zombie movie in one shot. The entire movie is meant to be done in one camera shot, and then what happens when there's an actual zombie outbreak when they're trying to make this zombie movie. Now, that's as much as I want to say about the story for those of you that want to be truly impressed and have your socks knocked off, because that is as much as I knew going into it. And that all comes to pass in the first about 37 minutes of the movie. Okay, everything else after that is something else entirely, and that first 37 minutes is literally its own complete thing, to the point where the credits roll at 37 minutes in, and I'm like, what is going on? What did I just watch? And then it continues into Act 2, and then it continues into Act 3, and Act 2 I was like, what? Okay. And then Act 3 I was like, oh, this is awesome, because, you know, I'm a person that likes unique takes on things, and this is definitely a unique take on the zombie genre, and it's also a take from a filmmaker's perspective. So if you've ever made anything at all next to filmmaking, doesn't have to be professional at all, if you've made student films, short films, helped your friends, any of that, you will appreciate this movie. It is so amazing. I think it's absolutely worth, you know, like I said, taking note of, because especially if you've worked on films, it rings a bell that no other movie has really rung before. That is like, I just appreciate, I was like, that aspect of it just made the movie like this gold nugget in the rough. And the fact that it made $26 million in Japan off of a $30,000 budget, that's like, it's not Blair Witch numbers, but it's pretty close considering the Japanese market. You know, it's truly successful, and it means that it's not so niche that you have to like zombie movies or filmmaking. You can like all kinds of stuff and maybe neither of those things and still enjoy this movie. Like, it's just that fun. There's laughs all over the place, silliness, over-the-top gore, craziness. Like, silliness, craziness seems kind of synonymous, but it's really not in this movie's case. There's a little bit of both. And it's just, it's on another level for a movie like this. And again, I hesitate to give away more. So those of you that don't want the rest spoiled, or, you know, don't want to know, again, I'm not going to spoil the movie. I'm just going to say what the rest of the acts are. And I'll show you, skip ahead to this time code here if you don't want to know the rest of the story, and then I'll tell you the rest of what I wanted to tell you about the movie. So those of you, go ahead and skip ahead now. So for those of you that are still here, the rest of the story is basically, that's the first part of the film. It's the one shot of the crew making this zombie movie while a zombie outbreak happens. And then it's essentially the crew gets whittled down, and then it's all the way down to the main actress who's being chased because the crew's getting turned the whole time. So the whole crew turns on her and chases her up to the top of a building, and she manages to fight her way free and like does this whole, you know, oh man, I'm spacing her name. Jennifer Love Hewitt screaming at the sky at the end of, or not at the end, but in the middle of I Know What You Did Last Summer. What are you waiting for? It's got that kind of ending thing where she's like screaming as the camera pulls up high, and then the credits roll, and you're like, what the heck is going on? The second act is then a flashback to before the film, where the crew is being gathered and the actors are being gathered, and they have their first table read of this one shot, and it's kind of how they all come together, and you learn a little bit about each of the actors, including one of the actors is a big drunk. And so all of that stuff will come into play in the third act, in which that then shows essentially the first act again, except this time you see all of the behind the scenes. You see how the whole crew and the actors and everything actually pull off what you see in the first part. So the first part is the one-shot version, and then the second part, or I'm sorry, the final act, you see how the crew and everyone pulled it off using other cameras and stuff that are actually showing how the crew is like diving out of the way, and like the drunk guy is actually being held up by the director because he's so drunk he's passed out being a zombie. And like there's so many fun things like that you know, it's absolutely a hilarious jaunt. So now that everyone else is back, I think that I didn't spoil enough to ruin it for everyone else. Now they know exactly what they're getting into with the movie and why it's fun. For those of you that skipped ahead, well done on not being spoiled. But I think the last thing I want to do is actually show you guys the trailer for One Cut of the Dead, because I think that's probably the best way to show what we can do here. Alright, so here we go, guys. I'm going to start this trailer so you guys can see the trailer for the movie. I don't know how much the trailer spoils, so I'll put another skip ahead moment right here if it spoils what I didn't want to spoil. So here we go. But this is what the filmmakers wanted you to know in order to make you watch the movie. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
表向きは浄水場として作られたんだけど 裏ではある実験に使ってたんだって。
ある実験？
人体実験。
撮影は続ける。カメラは止めない。
あの噂が本当だったなんて。最高かよ、おい。
Wow, this is a nutty trailer.
血はもう巻き終わった。
死の呪文を唱えるとそれは蘇る。それ？はい、カット。
Okay. Yeah, so there you
ゾ
go.
ンビもので、
Oh.
中継でワンカット
やっていただけますか。
All right. Okay, so that's enough. Yeah. All right, so no, they don't spoil what I guess I might have spoiled or whatever, so you guys are good. That's why I didn't need to put up a time code, but there you go. That is the long and short of the movie. So you can see that it's obviously very low budge looking. The whole movie itself was made for $30,000, so it's not meant to look really high budget, but that's all goes to the charm of it, and just seeing how everything is pulled off and everything, it's really amazing and interesting. So yeah, I think it's very much worth your guys' time. I wanted to bring your all's attention to it. Honestly, I would absolutely give this movie a 9 out of 10. Quite frankly, it's that entertaining. The acting is cheesy for a reason. The effects are cheesy for a reason. It's like, it's not like Shaun of the Dead because that's too clean, but it's it's like the making of feature in Shaun of the Dead if that were a thing. You know what I mean? I think that's maybe a good way to put it. So definitely keep your eyes open for it, or check it out if you have access to it. I know in the US it's still not available in most channels, so if you can get to it, more power to you, but I don't recommend going through illegal channels. But it is worth your time if you can get your hands on it. So that is going to do it, you guys. Thank you very much for watching. I might do a full review once other people have a chance to watch it and stuff like that. This is just, you know, letting you guys know about the movie and that it's very, very much worth your time, and keep an eye out for it. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird. If you somehow have seen it, let me know in the comments down below what you think of it, but don't spoil it for everyone else. But yeah, thank you guys very much, and remember, stay scared.